Welcome to the Flock and Hive podcast, a place for curious minds to explore all that makes life so weird and wonderful. And this week,
every single thing I talk about is based on nature, right? So I don't talk about stuff that is man-made or a man-made construct. It's all based on nature. And nature uses colours for camouflage, protection, and for attraction. And human beings do exactly the same.
We speak to Karen Hala about colour psychology.
Hello, and welcome back to episode 18 of the Flock and Hive podcast.
Hello.
This week it's all about colour, and I know that you've got a lot to say on this because you're an artist. But we are talking to Karen Hala. She is a global authority in behavioural design and applied colour and design psychology, as well as the author of the bestseller Little Book of Colour. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of things, but largely how the colours we wear make us feel and make other people feel about us.
That's the thing, isn't it? I always sort of assumed knowing your colours was fashion based, just like a kind of surface thing, like what makes you look good or what doesn't.
I know. And the fact that it's about wavelengths rather than associations. Absolutely fascinating.
So as you mentioned, I'm an artist and colour does come into play a lot in what I do. But it's never really left that world for me. Though actually having kids, I have sort of noticed it though, because I've got 3 boys and the 2 older ones, they're only 2 years apart and they're really into the same things. They always want the same clothes, especially the littler one. He wants to be like his big brother. But what I have noticed is that the same clothes don't work on both of them. And that is a basic introduction to, colours on different people because they're such different personalities and they've very different tones. They're quite similar to you and me, aren't they? Whereas you're very autumnal as my sister, but I'm very cool and wintry, much cooler than you. But the 8-year-old is so me, and to be honest, the 10-year-old looks like your daughter's twin, and is very similar to your colouring, wouldn't you say?
Definitely, yes. Did we ever wear the same clothes? We did have a couple of identical outfits, didn't we? But
it's funny you should say that because recently, just looking through some photo albums, there's one holiday when you're late teen, I'm early teen, but we're both in the same yellow bikini or the same colour yellow bikini. But then I think it's really shone a light on how different we are, and it was just wearing the same colour because you tan very easily, and it was part of that like autumnal palette that you can totally pull off. Whereas yellow on me, I just look like a corpse. And it's just a really good example how it's individual, isn't it? It's even as siblings, it's a completely personal thing. But that also goes hand in hand, got really different personalities too. So why wouldn't that come into play? Like different colours bounce differently around us.
But it must be tricky if you've dyed your hair a different colour as well, because that will kind of mess. Oh, it's not going to change your skin tone, but it is going to mess with your overall appearance.
I made the massive mistake of dyeing my hair too soon to my wedding, and it was really dark chocolatey brown so I had to really like bump up the blusher and everything, and I don't usually wear that much makeup, so that was a mistake I had to learn from.
But you know what? Being your sister as well, and I would be honest if I've gone, actually, yeah, that was a bit weird. But it did something really beautiful to your skin, though. You look so pale, not in a washed out kind of way, I don't think, in a way that the ancient Greeks would have celebrated.
Well, I've been on enough sunbeds, so I don't know how that happened, but that was just to address the back knee, the sunbeds.
But maybe you're naturally kind of pale blue, and it takes you a week of sunbathing to get white. So that was a line.
That's true. It's true.
Billy Connolly sketch. No, but it did. You had very kind of real porcelain feel. In fact, that makes me think of the word of the week that I wanted to share with you today.
Nice one. That was a good one. I'll give you that.
But there's a word that I can't believe I haven't come across until now, but I've heard it twice in a week now. One whilst doing a Provençal rosé tasting with Vin de Provence, and the other with All About This, and that is nacreous. Nacreous?
It makes me think of necrophilia.
You're just so weird. No, it's not that, funnily enough. But if something is nacreous or nacreous, it has a lustrous, pearly appearance, a bit like the inside of a shell. And I learnt this at the rosé tasting because it's one of the new color profiles that they give a very, very pale rosé, nacre in French, which is from this, nacreous. So, for example, she wore a beautiful necklace made of nacreous beads, each one catching the light and reflecting a rainbow of colors.
Or in short form, she wore a pearl necklace.
Yes, lovely pearl necklace. We like those.
The actual jewellery, though. Seeing as we're talking about colours and weddings, this has just popped into my mind, and I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh, no, not again.
Well, neither of us thought of it at the time, and at the time it was perfect and beautiful and still is in memory, but fucking purple bridesmaids dresses.
Oh, my wedding.
Oh yeah, don't worry, you didn't ruin my wedding.
Oh my God, honestly, I have PTSD from buying bridesmaids dresses because you all hated them. You all liked different ones. But you all looked amazing in them. It's royal purple, quite dark.
I mean, the reason it was difficult, and this is every single bride's problem, I imagine, is all three of us really, firstly, just really different body types,
Yeah.
very different personalities. I mean, if I was to do it again, I wouldn't just don't give them the choice, or just give a choice of three and decide between yourselves, lock them in a room and fight it out. Yes, I was very happy at the time, but looking back, like purple is it's a very bold color.
Regal.
Okay, if you say so. You had your royal, regal, beautiful bridesmaids. Would you choose that now, knowing what we know about color?
No, no, I wouldn't. But no, unless Karen tells me that I should. Basically, I don't actually know because I haven't done that color consultation. I don't actually know what the right thing is at the moment. I need to look into it a bit more.
Yeah, I don't. It feels quite overwhelming actually because I wouldn't know where to start. But on going back to the wedding day, I totally copped out on the even thinking about color because all my bridesmaids were in white with me.
Yes, yeah, and that was lovely. I hadn't actually seen that before.
Quite a risk putting your hot sister in a white dress on your wedding day.
I mean, yeah.
So there's loads to learn about color here, but it's not just what you wear, not just what you put up in your house art-wise or paint your walls. It's, how you are projecting in any kind of environment. If you're wanting to like hide away from people or bring them in or collaborate or just focus, that is something I'm really going to experiment with now.
Well, me too. And I think we're going to have a few episodes on colour because we couldn't possibly cover everything here. But for now, let's dive in and hear what Karen Haller had to say about colour psychology. Karen Haller, I am so delighted you could join us today on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm really thrilled to be talking to you.
Well, we can't wait to hear everything you have to say. So why don't we start at the beginning and talk a little bit about what is colour psychology exactly?
Yeah, so the easiest way for me to explain it is to say that it's how color, or it's a study of how color, excuse me, influences how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And the majority of that happens, as you were alluding to before, on a subconscious level. We're only about 20% conscious of the color choices, the color decisions we make, even though we're making thousands and thousands, every day. But that's really what color psychology is. And it has this amazing ability to change how we feel, how we think, how we behave in an instant. So depending on what the colors are around us, and we can go from one room to another or wear something different or see something different or, whatever is going on, we can actually change that how we feel and think behave can change like instantaneously. So yeah, it's really fascinating. But the bit that I love about it the most is about color and human behavior. That to me is what I find absolutely fascinating, and it's this bottomless pit of just research, but also application. And when I work with my clients, with my students, it's just this amazing thing that that thing I'll ever get to the bottom of. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's way, way bigger than any of us could even imagine. So, if you had to give a couple of examples of how color affects us on a subconscious level every day, could you do that?
So just the really simple things are, which we don't even probably pay attention to, but when you're making your morning cup of tea or coffee and you put milk in, you will know exactly how much milk to put in because you know that if you put too little or too much, the taste changes. So you do this automatically without even realizing it. Quite often you'll just go to your wardrobe and you'll open up and you'll pick something out, but you may not realize that the color that you're picking is because how you want to think or feel or behave during that day, but it's also how you want people to perceive you. It's how you might be in a certain mood or have a certain feeling which you might want to support, and so you'll pick a color for that. Or you might want to change how you're feeling. You might want to feel more uplifted, or you might want to feel more calmer or more relaxed, and so we pick colors subconsciously that allow us to do that. We also can pick colors that allow us to hide because we might not want to be seen. So, or we might want to feel that we're in authority, or we want people to take us seriously. So we are making those kind of decisions all the time. When we're going out shopping, we know which are the ripe apples and which aren't, or which are the ripe bananas. We know when to cross the road. We know where we can park because the white lines or yellow lines. We're being directed all of the time on this unspoken way of communicating, which is really what color is. Color allows us to communicate without saying a word. And so this is happening all the time. So I'm sure now, like everything you're doing, you're like going, oh, am I being influenced by color? Is this directing me? Oh, we don't realize, even when we go shopping, shopping even for brands that we don't know, those brands are all saying, look at me, I'm the one for you. They're wanting us to buy them. So we're being so these subconscious subliminal cues, I should say, are happening all the time.
Yeah. My goodness, now there's a minefield. I'd love to talk a little bit later about kind of branding and, what colors make us do what, and we we don't know we're being led, etc. Just going back to the clothes element, are the colors universal for everyone? Like, does red generally make people feel a certain way, or will it be different for another person?
So if we're talking about color psychology, for every color there are positive traits and there are adverse traits. All right. So let's take, because reds are really, it's a good example, and it's an example that's, really easy to understand. So now, not to get too detailed, but we've got warm reds, which are those rust reds or watermelon reds. They're really nice, warm reds. Then we've got cold reds, which are like the fire engine red. That's a really kind of cold blue red. Now, I'll use myself as an example. If I wore a watermelon red, which I know is my red, then it will give me a lift. It will raise my how I feel physically, because red relates to the physical. So what I mean by that is raises the pulse rate, and I will feel physically stimulated, physically motivated. It's that kind of, I always say red is like that, like drinking a double espresso. It's that get up and go color. And it's the fight or flight response color because it really activates also our adrenals. So I will feel really good in that color. But if I wear too much of it or I have it on too long, I can actually start then to feel overwhelmed. So I can start to feel the negative or the adverse sides of red. I can start to feel stressed, and I might even then start to get annoyed and angry because I've worn it for too long. So it's not that one color will do one thing. It is what color you're wearing, how long you're wearing it, and then also in the context that you're in. So it might be a great color for me to wear when I'm maybe running or doing some exercise because it helps that. But if I want to have focused concentration and I really want to be quiet and calm, red will not be the color that I would use. Now, the same goes for if I wore then a red that wasn't mine. So if I wore a fire engine red, it would put me into overwhelm straight away because it's not my red. And it would actually make me look very hard. And because the blue in that red would just drain the color from my face. Now, if I was in the boardroom or I was up get on stage and I wanted everyone to pay attention and I wanted everyone to focus on me, they would definitely see me first, because they see the red, because red advances towards us the quickest in the color wavelengths. But here I'm trying to come across as friendly and approachable, and the red is actually giving a completely different message. It's not working with me, it's working against me. And so people will find me likely to be hard and unapproachable and yeah, just and not at all friendly. So even though we can wear a color because of what it gives us, it might be that if it's not the right color in that right context, and maybe too much of it, because I've seen women wear head to toe red when they're on stage and it's the wrong red, and they are having to work really, really hard to win the audience over. And by the end of it, they are exhausted because the color has also exhausted them, but also because they've had to up their energy game is also exhausting. So all of this can happen when if we are wearing the right color, but maybe the wrong tone of it, or too much of it, or for too long. And that's not to confuse you or the listeners, but we have this instinctive, innate knowing. And I think the more that we're conscious that this could be happening, someone might go, oh, okay, that's why when I wear that color, I always feel a bit tired or I feel a bit drained. I remember when back in my 20s when I was first working and I was actually studying fashion design at night, and I made myself this most beautiful top, and it was an olive green and it was draped beautifully, and just the workmanship, like I was so proud of this beautiful top that I'd made. But I realized every time I wore it to work, my boss would say to me, Karen, are you okay? You don't look well. Are you sick? Do you need to go home? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. And I couldn't work it out. And it wasn't until I did my color psychology studies that I realized that olive green is not a color that suits me. And actually, when I put it up against me now, it makes my skin go yellow. So the color drains from my face, but I get this really funny yellow look. And I can see now why my boss always thought I was ill.
You're talking in terms, I'm assuming, of like wrong tone for you, because I have heard that we will have, like, we're a spring, we're a summer, an autumn, a winter, perhaps, and certain tones suit us better. Like, I think I'm autumnal, just from my colouring. You might tell me otherwise. So when you talk
Mm,
about the right colour, it's the right colour for you. Um, but then you've also got to consider, if you are doing a presentation, for example, or you want to come across a certain way, you've got to make sure that it's a color that gives the right message at the same time.
yeah, absolutely.
And can those two things be quite different?
Well, it depends. I mean, if I'm going into a meeting and I know it's a very collaborative meeting and I want people to feel very open and they can talk to me, then I will wear a light blue, or I will wear like a turquoise blue. So it's like you're giving a double message, a conscious message, which is my personal behavior, but then the message of the colors. And these two messages, when they're in alignment, people subconsciously, they won't say, oh yes, Karen's very open. They just feel that I am,
Mm,
because we're calibrating everything all of the time. We're calibrating mainly for safety. Are we accepted? Do we belong? We're calibrating, do they understand me? Do they get me? And that's again, whether it's a brand, whether it's a person. And what is it? It's the first 8 seconds or whatever it is,
yeah.
that you meet somebody, you're already making a judgment.
Yes.
And you're making a judgment, yes, on their mannerisms, but also you're making a judgment, yes, on what they're wearing, but also the colors. It's the whole. So we're calibrating the whole, and we're looking for harmony. Us as human beings, we need this harmony. So we're looking for this all of the time.
Is it inherent? Like, I know you mentioned at the beginning that we could go into supermarket and we can tell whether fruit is ripe or not. And that does seem to be just something that we as humans know instinctively from years
Mm.
and years and years of just evolving, essentially.
Well, anthropologists will say it is from our ancestors, from our caveman times.
Hmm.
Before we could speak, color was our signaling language, and we used color in order to survive, because we knew what was right, we knew what was poisonous. Obviously the green trees, we knew there was water. So we used color all of the time. And with animals across species use color to communicate, because they know what's poisonous, what to stay away from. what's delicious. Do you know what I mean? So every single thing I talk about is based on nature,
Mhm.
right? So I don't talk about stuff that is man-made or a man-made construct. It's all based on nature. And nature uses colors for camouflage, protection, and for attraction. And human beings do exactly the same.
Of course.
Mm.
Can you give us some more examples of colours that universally will make you feel a certain way? Like you mentioned, the light blue and the turquoise might make people feel it's a very trusting environment.
Just to say with that, I mean, if I wore a cold blue, a dusty blue, or a navy blue, or if I wore a powder blue, I wouldn't come across that way. I would come across as cold because that would be the adverse side of blue. I wouldn't look approachable. So it really is down to the colors suiting you because there's thousands of blues. And I think what's happening with color psychology, and I'm seeing this a lot, is that it's turned into this very high level blue means trust. If I wear a navy blue, I will look unapproachable and cold and aloof. Humans have this habit. We think everything is now a three-step quiz. What color should I put in my house? What's the color I should wear for my job interview? What's the best color for? And it's not as simple as that. And I think in our social media instant gratification world, we want everything really, really quick. And color psychology isn't like that. Humans are complex. And color psychology, based on nature, and when you bring it with humans, it is also complex. So what I don't want that you or the listener to go away with is just thinking, oh, well, then I'll just wear any blue or any red or any green and this is going to be it. It's not that at all. It really is finding the right one for you. If I talk about colors, I'm talking about the traits of those colors, but it's still finding the right ones for you. So, and I'm just thinking about the color of happiness is orange, and orange is my favorite color. But the orange that I love is the orange of a marigold calendula flower. It's that really light or bright orange, clear orange. Whereas if you gave me a burnt orange, again, I would look really washed out and it would tire me out. Whereas somebody who they suited that color and it was their personality, they would just look stunning. When I have my clients and I put the olive green and they are a true autumn, they just glow like they don't even need makeup,
Wow.
right? Don't even need makeup. They just absolutely glow. And I just go, wow, yeah, you can really see the difference. And that's what we want. We want to look our best and we want to feel our best.
Yeah, I just got a feeling I get this wrong. I'm so bad at dressing myself anyway. It's always a stress. And I've never really understood color properly. So you're saying if people have the time, the inclination to speak to someone like yourself to work out exactly what their color system is probably something that would just give and give for the rest of your life.
Yes, but then I've also, my book, The Little Book of Color,
Mhm.
I've actually got a section in there of how to do this yourself.
Right. Brilliant.
There's a quiz in there, which is really quick because my editor wanted me to put it in and I didn't want to put it in because I said it's more complex than this, but they said no. So it's a very, very high level. The very thing that I don't like is these pop quizzes is exactly what's in the book. But then there is a section following that you take the colors and you stand in front of a mirror with natural light and then you put the colors under your chin and don't wear any makeup, put all your hair back and then put the colors under your chin and then just start observing how you react and respond, how your face responds to it. And if you can't see it, put colors that like if I put magenta pink under my face, oh my gosh, if I put black, it's like the life has been sucked out of my face. The colors in the color palettes that I use are exactly how it is in nature. So exactly as spring colors, whereas a lot of the other color houses have a mix of all different seasons in one color palette, or they might just have all light, soft colors in spring, but those soft, light colors might be a summer soft color or autumn soft color.
Right.
And so therefore quite often people come to me and say, oh, when I've had I don't like this term, when I've had my colors done, why do some colors suit me and why some don't? And at the end of the consultation, then I can say, oh, it's because these ones are in your autumn summer palette, what you've really got in here is spring colors and summer colors, and those are the ones you haven't felt comfortable with. And then I give them a whole new palette because nature gets this perfectly right. And the best example for this is an autumnal tree. So when an autumn tree turns from its green to its reds, saffrony yellows, and its rust reds and its rust oranges, those colours are nature, right? They're the autumnal colours. It's not what you see in your garden, because you will see any colour any time of the year, because they're all hybrids, they're all genetically modified plants, even magenta flowers in springtime. So it's as nature intended. It's proper nature, which we've kind of messed up a bit. But that's another story.
And it sounds like there aren't really many other colour houses or anyone doing it like this, just with a real focus on the human element, the nature side.
Yes, because and I learnt this from my teacher, Angela Wright. So, I'm not taking credit for this. This is her system. It's her system, but really it's Mother Nature's system.
Mhm.
And color psychology is based on Mother Nature. Design psychology, which I do, is also based on Mother Nature. So we have this most amazing teacher out there, and that's what I stick to. Even though spring, summer, autumn, winter has been used as a term in other places, the way the colours are put together aren't what nature do. It's what somebody has decided would go into those colours,
Right.
into those colour palettes. So if anyone has had their colours done and thought, oh, I've always wondered why I really look good in this colour but not in this one, that could be the reason.
Right. So what other nuggets of wonderful, colourful information are there in your book? Can you tell us more about that?
Oh gosh, there's lots, but I think the main thing about this book, and it wasn't until I was 3/4 of the way through that it really hit me. The book's about coming home to self. The book is about coming back to self-expression and to who we really are authentically. But it really is about us having the confidence, and because a lot of people aren't confident with color. And it's usually because we're worried that we're going to be judged, we're not going to be liked, we're going to be ostracized, we're not going to be accepted, and ultimately what we make that mean is that we're not going to be loved. And this is a very, very human thing. So, it's kind of like our first love needs to be with ourselves. I thought for me to be taken seriously, I had to wear black. So I would wear black every day. And this is a story in the book as well. And then one night I went out with my colleagues and they said to me, my God, you're really as mad as a box of frogs, aren't you? And I went, yeah, I am. And they said, do you want to know, do you want to know the nickname that we've given you at work? And I said, oh, go and tell me. They said, we call you the Ice Maiden. And I just went, yeah, I get it. And that's really what the book is about, showing who we really are, showing up authentically, and feeling okay with that. And I think women, as they get older, they've had their families, they've had they're in their careers, and all of a sudden they get to a stage where they think, do you know what? It's time for me now. It's my time. And it's time for me to really be who I am. And that's why I think this book has done. I mean, this book is in 14 languages. It's all over the world. And there's not a day that doesn't go by that someone says to me, gosh, your book has changed my life. And that's the whole idea, is that I want people to really get confident with color again. But if you're confident with color, it means also that you're confident with yourself.
I love that. I wear a lot of far too dark colours. I think I am, and I know I'm hiding a lot. It's really interesting. But then I have my other side where I want to be seen. But I think it's almost like I need to conserve my energy for those times as a highly sensitive person, as as an empath. When I go out, I give everything. And so the times I'm not, it's like she says, sort of wrapping around a dark cardigan as she's
So,
speaking to you.
so there will be a color that still gives you what you need. Like after this podcast, I'll be exhausted, right? When I speak to people, when I'm out with people, I get so excited and I love it. And then when I come back, I'm exhausted. But look at why you're wearing a dark color, because sometimes a dark color can actually bring us down and make us even more tired.
Right.
So it's thinking about, okay, I'm back from this event. How do I now want to feel? And you might want to just say, for instance, you want to feel nurtured. None of those colors are a dark color, so it's about how it is that you want to feel, and then finding colors that will give you what you need but will support you positively, because hiding means you're hiding your emotions, and it means you're shutting down your emotions, and going from a high to such a low emotionally is in itself very draining. And it might be that when you go out, you wear colors that support you more so that you don't have this big spike if it's not needed.
That makes so much sense. So much sense. I think I'm going to have to book a session with you after this. You're saying about getting to know yourself. And I think why this is a great conversation to have on this podcast is that I think a lot of our listeners, and indeed Lizzie, my sister, and I, and the reason that we set it up is because we are in that second half of life where actually we're more interested in who we are and what we think.
Mm,
And so it is a time to actually nurture ourselves in that way and to find out more who we are and to dress appropriately.
yeah.
Yeah. So please tell us, where can we find all your things, yourself, your book, and everything that you do?
So it's called The Little Book of Color: How to Use the Psychology of Color to Transform Your Life. So it's a really big claim. But it's my big audacious goal that the world falls back in love with color again. That is my big thing. And you can get it in any bookshop, and if they don't have it, they can order it, because Penguin is a worldwide publisher.
So what about your website and your Instagram handles and all the things?
So my consultancy website is karenhuller.com. Then I've got a littlebookofcolor.com. And if your listeners go there, they can actually download the first chapter for free.
Ah,
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and Instagram is Karen_Huller_color.
fabulous. Okay, fantastic. And you're quite prolific on there, I've seen as well. It's a fantastic medium for anything color-based, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And this podcast there will be definitely a post on this podcast when it goes live. So, yeah, I do lots of things, and I just want people to get excited with their own love of color, and I'm hoping my Instagram and my social media does that, and realize that there's nothing to be scared of.
Well, as ever, there is so much more to discuss on the subject, but we cannot do that today. So let's leave it there. And I would just say, Karen Huller, thank you so much for joining us on the Flock and Hope.
Oh, my pleasure, my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So, artist, colour, thoughts?
Well, my first thought is I need a new wardrobe.
Oh, me too. God.
I mean, yes, I have always been interested and aware of the different effects of color, but mostly I know color and understand color theory in the world of painting, but to get a likeness of what you want to project in the paint rather than how to make someone feel, that's quite a new thing for me in that respect.
Mm.
But what was interesting about how she's saying it's not just about how your clothes can make you feel, it's how others perceive you. Because I always get compliments when I wear a particular light blue. And she mentions, doesn't she, that light blue is a collaborative, approachable color. And I'm always like, do I look that great in blue? But maybe it's actually because in the workplace generally, I am a purveyor of resting bitch face. So I do wonder, I do wonder if the days I wore that blue, people would just open up and feel they want to come and talk to me a bit more. And that's a bit mind blowing, but probably a thing.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I was aware from some research I'd done a while ago that the colour of the top you wear, like if you wear it into an interview or in a meeting, will affect how people think about you. But I thought that was more to do just with associations rather than how the physical light penetrates your face, your eyes, and makes you feel.
But also makes them feel about you, makes them judge you on, what energies they're picking up from you. Yeah, not just whether like, oh, she's dressing as a powerhouse, she obviously takes it seriously. It's more like, wow, this candidate is making me feel this way about her. That's
Yes,
what's really bonkers.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't realise it was that. I hadn't realised it was that.
And that kind of supports that theory of color advancing towards you, which is mental. When she talks about the fire engine red, like it penetrates it, it gets closer to you quicker because of its wavelengths.
Yeah. Can we have a moment for the mind fuck that is colour, actually? Because just thinking about it and what it is, it's just light, isn't it? And it's what happens when it hits an object. The fact that some wavelengths are absorbed and others are reflected, and what you see is just determined by the bits that are reflected and the bits that are absorbed. So, really, it's just our eyes perceiving the colour, and everything might just be, I don't know what, white, colourless, glass.
And also, like you mentioned, you asked her, is it the same for everyone? Because I do wonder if there's a spectrum of what we see, because we never know what other people see, do we? And obviously, you have colorblind people, they wouldn't know any different. So it's like, I don't even think from one person to another. I reckon there's a slight spectrum where we probably don't see the same tone.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Depends on our eyes.
Talking about absorbing and reflecting, I am a sculptor and I've did a sculpture of Donald Trump, and I created it in clay, which is grey and matte. And the reason clay is coloured like that for sculpting in that kind of detail is because it's kind of flat and it doesn't bounce off any light. So your attention to detail, you can really see around the corners without getting distracted from any kind of high points or shadows in it. But I also cast my sculpture in bronze, and that's always really problematic for me because I love the mateness of the clay, but unless you fire it, it's not really, there's no longevity there. If you're selling it as a piece, it's very, breakable and brittle. So I always have the dilemma. I kind of don't like how it ends up in bronze. It becomes a completely different piece, especially before you even colored it in bronze. And it's that really, it's almost golden. Raw bronze is like a beautiful golden color, but it's shiny, and it's the high points are suddenly much more magnified, and the shadows are overwhelmed with shadow, so you can't see the tiny little details because the piece I made is quite small. And I'm always have to have a word with myself because I freak out, like, it doesn't look like how I made it, but it's because it's a totally different color.
I'd never thought of it like that because obviously I'm very familiar with your, in inverted commas, grumpy Trumpy, and its real name is the greatest sculpture in the history of sculptures.
Yes,
Yes.
because that's how he would describe it himself.
Just going back to when we were talking about how colours affect how you feel physically, but also how others perceive you when you're wearing that colour, can we just remind ourselves of our school uniform?
Fire engine red.
Fire engine red, but not just the blazer. You know, as girls, the skirt, we had a beret, we had regulation fire engine red knickers that were checked every day. Can you imagine? The teachers must have been sort of beside themselves looking at a sea of that every day.
My God.
It's not a good idea. What were they thinking?
And also, my kids have a fire engine red uniform. It's not the same school, but it was only listening to this interview with Karen where it just the penny dropped. My 8-year-old is beside himself every single day, does not want to go to school. The whole dressing element is really traumatic. And he's got a bright fucking red jumper on. And it is his, first thing in the morning. And he's very much like me, my 8-year-old. He's got the same colorings. We're much like a cooler, wintry, pastely, pinky type vibe. And so I'm chucking this color on him. And then, like you said, the teachers have to deal with all this sea of red, but then the kids do as well. So Karen, she does consultations for businesses, doesn't she? And about how, color therapy and color theory in spaces, about how to make your employees feel and how to create that environment. That should be done in schools
Mm,
for the uniform.
100%, and other things as well, but definitely anyone with a red uniform needs to rethink. You know, there's a school around the corner from where you are now, that's bright purple. I wonder what that does.
An absolute assault.
It is an assault. It feels more chilled than the red, but it also feels a bit more sinister.
Yeah. But talking about her experience and the reason that she's so invested, it was amazing that she says you can wear a color for too long. It's like some kind of drug, like you have to be prescribed an amount.
Yeah, but it kind of makes sense though, doesn't it? Like you just want to
Yeah.
take that off at the end. And I've experienced that, especially although I've always thought it was largely to do with the fact that I'm wearing something that's probably a little bit too tight because it looks good and I'm doing a presentation. I want to get it off rather than the fact that actually it's a very, very bright pink and I've had enough of it. But it's probably both, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Knickers being checked. I don't remember that, but is that a trauma block?
Um, possibly. I mean, it was all everyone outdoors in a line, lining up to go into class, and a teacher would just sort of you'd have to lift up your skirt, and they'd have to check you're wearing your over knickers. Seriously, seriously.
I don't remember that.
Well, you were 4 years younger than me, and I know it wasn't happening towards the end of the school, so maybe it sort of stopped halfway. So you would have been really young for that to still be happening. So how old
Mm.
was I there? 8, 9?
Were you mortified?
No, just sort of because it was just an adult, and adults are in charge and they know best, and you don't think about it then. You don't think about it with these. You don't
God,
look at it with grown up eyes when you're that young.
fucking that's bad. Bad.
Mm.
Yeah, it must have stopped by the time because I feel like I would have remembered that. So you've redecorated massively recently, haven't you? With colours that were advised for you. And I walked into your house and it was just a different place.
Really? Did you feel that?
Mm.
'Cause we've changed most things now, and some of them were the most subtle changes, but it was bringing something like with a slightly cold tone to a warmer tone. And Hamish, bless him, I know you'll be listening. Sorry, he'd be like, I can't see any difference, but there is, and it is, it's like this one's cream and this one's off white. So, but no, but one was actually had sort of blue tints of grey and was quite cold in feel, and the new one is slightly more oatmeal even though it is really subtle. But I think the difference it makes in feel is huge.
But that's the point. It's not actually about what it looks like, is it? It's creating the environment. We've recently redecorated and I got two of the bedrooms colours so wrong. And every time I step foot in there, it actually makes me angry. It was a lick paint and it's called Grey O2. And on the sample, it sort of had like a sort of greyish, but like a bluey, mellowy, minty undertone. But on the walls, it is just grey. And it's just like, I'm in an office in my own bedroom.
Oh, what are you going to do? You're going to change it at some point? You're going to
Yeah,
paint it,
definitely. Yeah,
do
I
some
have to
art on it?
repaint it because it doesn't make me feel good in that space.
Yeah, but it's important. The color of your bedroom is really important. We talked a lot about ours before we did it and before going for what we did, which is, for listeners, it's a kind of soft foresty green, just in case you wanted to know.
So you can imagine them up there. Also, another thing as well, how she talks about nature informing stuff. Because when I didn't realize when you're painting, because repainted our whole house, you have to take into consideration which direction your room is facing. So what light you get in certain parts of the day, because that natural light transforms the color, transforms how you feel, transforms the ambience of the room. So again, even in something as basic as painting a wall, and yes, I like that color, it makes me feel this way, you still have to rely on where nature's input is coming in at what time of the day, and if even if it ever reaches, like, do you ever get any sun in that room kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's true. I saw that firsthand when our library bit downstairs. I thought we had three different colours on the walls, and Emily's like, "No, this is why you need to really do the samples everywhere for that exact reason, because one was so dark and the other was so light, and then there was something in the middle that was not like either of them, and it was the same. Unbelievable."
And that's Emily, the astrologer, isn't it, who we interviewed, but who's also uh well, an interior designer, and it's all about the color, isn't she?
Yes, well, she is Emily and colour. There's nothing she doesn't know, and she's really, really blooming good at it. Yeah.
I'm actually quite shit considering I'm an artist. Really am. I want to do a color theory course. There's an amazing guy on Instagram. If you want to understand what goes into a color, like how there is orange in mint green, there's this amazing guy on Instagram called Fritz Does Art, FRITZ Does Art. And it's just very quick videos of him slapping loads of colors together to match a little sample card. And it's really interesting how you've got like some neon green and burnt orange and it makes this kind of blue. It's really cool. This has definitely made me, I'm going to do a color theory course and look into my own colors too, because I'm really quite lazy with my fashion. I chuck on black a lot, and actually when I see photos back of me, I'm like, that doesn't work. But I feel like it's my safe place. Remember growing up, it was like black is smart, black is safe, LBD, little black dress. It's supposed to be a universal thing for everyone. Whereas actually I look quite shit in black.
And it's meant to make you feel all kind of grabby as well if you're actually wearing it. So 90% of my clothes are black. I hide.
Yeah, and constantly feel like you're at a funeral.
Yeah.
Um, do you I mean, we all know you have shouty, angry smells that enrage you. Do you have a colour that does that to you?
Well, certain types of red, if someone's wearing too much of it, I really do think, fuck off. Anyway, while it feels like it's a good time to wrap up this particular conversation, I think it's quite a nice primer for next week's guest, actually. Alice Bettany, and she is a herbalist known as Sacred Seeds on Instagram, and she's going to talk to us all about foraging and plants as medicine and trusting nature in that way.
That sounds lush, literally. Yeah, and again, just pointing towards coming back to yourselves, using nature to do that. It's what all of this is about, isn't it?
All of it, absolutely. And remember, in the meantime, we've got various articles on flockandhive.com, and you can follow us on socials at flockandhive. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, because that's got some lovely extra tidbits in it too.
But no tits.
No.
Until we need more followers, then we might get our tits out.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. And please don't forget to rate us and share us to bump us up the charts. But until next week, bye.
Bye-bye.